Hey everybody, these tape tips were originally recorded for YouTube, so occasionally an episode may have a few moments that are better suited for watching rather than just listening. The link to the YouTube video is in the show notes, and if you're on Spotify, you can choose to watch the video right there. Thanks. If we look at the typically depicted grade pyramid, in order to reach V10, you should aim for something like 8 V7s, 4 V8s, and 2 V9s. So it's easy to imagine these 2 V9s are the key to unlocking V10. And in some ways, that's not a bad idea. But I'd argue that the true key lies here, in the V7s. And I think that goes for pretty much any grade pyramid, topped at whatever number. In this video, I'm going to explain why V7 is the key to V10, or why V4 is the key to V7, as well as where this idea can be gamed, causing it to fall apart. And I'm going to give you a new way to look at grades so that it's harder to end up stuck and spinning your wheels. Let's get into it. So first, I started connecting these dots initially because of a recent episode of one of my podcasts. Nate Drolet and I have been recording board meetings on the Power Company Climbing Podcast since 2016. And in this one, the mindset shifts that led us to V10, I offered up one of my points. Because I was a sport climber like you, and I was training like a sport climber, I also thought about building a pyramid like a sport climber. And I was like, I have to go do a ton of V6s, a ton of V7s. And for me, V7 was the grade that unlocked V10. Once I realized that I could do any V7. Now, to be honest, saying that seemed almost like a bit of a hot take. But surprisingly, Nate had come to the same conclusion.
We've never talked about this. Because I very much, and this is going to be kind of what my next point ends up folding into, is for me, breaking into V7 and making it to where I was like, okay, I am a V7 climber, the road was clear to V10 from there.
And that got me thinking, what exactly is it about V7 that led us both to think that it must be the key ingredient to climbing V10? And eventually, that brought me back to this old, outdated, often dismissed, but maybe right on the money idea, the grade pyramid. The problem is that we've placed more importance here, in the upper levels. The numbers are bigger, grades are harder, they're closer to the goal, so they must be more important, right? But more important than this foundation? I doubt it, for several reasons. Not least of which is because at these high grades, you've only passed a couple of tests. And what I mean is that each boulder is a test. In order to pass that test, you have to find the right combination of skill and action capacity, that's strength, power, endurance, whatever, required to do that given boulder. And if you want to open access to a grade instead of just one very specific boulder, then you need all of these different tests with their different requirements. Now, I'm not saying that everyone needs to reach some specific level of strength like a video game, or pass a test on every variation of every movement we do. Instead, we have to recognize that climbing is a game of compensation and calibration. You might be able to compensate for a lack of strength with more skill or more mobility, or compensate for a lack of skill with more strength or great tactics, or even just pure belief. And beyond that, we're constantly recalibrating the strength and skill that we apply depending on the specific move and how fatigued we are when we encounter it, or how the conditions have changed. The point is, there's some combination of compensation and calibration, of adaptation, of your action capacity and skill that's required for you to pass each test. And the more of those tests you can pass, the better prepared you are. And that is where the volume at this base level of the pyramid comes into play. Consider this. Many of the most basic skills of climbing were mastered long before you started seriously considering V10 and lower levels of this pyramid. If you've gone about this the right way, then once you've done, say, a handful of V7s, maybe a couple of V8s, and you're just starting to think about doing V9, then it's pretty likely that your first warm-ups can be on 3s and 4s. Your action capacity, at its base level of readiness, is primed for that, and you've essentially mastered the skill requirements for those grades. Now, your next warm-ups are probably on 5s and some 6s, so you're probably doing more of those, repeating ones you struggled up previously. New quick sins on trips, you're racking up dozens of them. In this zone, a few grades below your 4-level pyramid base, V3 to V6 in this case, is what I call the Explore Zone. This is where you can play and experiment. If you find some aspect of a climb at this grade to be difficult, you can likely put all of your attention toward it, whereas on a much harder grade, the chaos can be a little overwhelming. I mean, consider a moderate climb that has good handholds but a few terrible feet. Because you're comfortable on the hands and with the moves, you can focus your attention on how to better use the feet. You can feel what is and isn't working. You can explore. So by the time we've created this full V7 base, we've probably done a lot of climbing in the Explore Zone, and we've gained a relatively large library of movements, tactics, and skills, and we've raised our action capacity to a fairly high level. And so now, V7 is feeling pretty easy, such that you've probably now started to add to this base, ideally while trying harder things. And the more you do, to a point, the better you'll get at adapting and calibrating those skills across a variety of different sequences, environments, rock types, and pressures, and you'll find yourself doing the same on V8s. This is the Expand Zone, where you're expanding those skills you learned in the Explore Zone. You're adapting techniques to steeper or more difficult terrain. You're solidifying those skills and recalibrating rapidly and more frequently. And this expansion might even continue into V9 a little bit, but as you get to those higher grades, the calibration is a little tougher. There's less opportunity to compensate, which is, in part, what makes these climbs harder. This is the Exploit Zone, where to get up things, you need to exploit the skills that you've already mastered. Now, if one of the skills you haven't mastered is summoning the right kind of effort to get things done quickly, check out my free Try Harder Toolkit. It's a 1-hour video series that'll help you better understand effort and how to cultivate and manage that effort. And when you can do that, you'll get that base level of your pyramid done much faster. However, it's not a situation where you just get to do 8 or 10 V7s and then you're ready for V10. Like any other system, this one can be gamed. For instance, you might find a situation where you can do several V7s that all start on the same crux sequence and finish on different easy terrain. Big win, right? No. In terms of gaining adaptability, this one only counts as 1. I'd also argue that if you're aiming to climb V10 outdoors, then indoor boulders just don't count. They're practice, not performance. You can certainly learn some of the compensation and recalibration and how to adapt a skill to a new movement scenario, but you don't have to deal with the same conditions and pressures, microbeta, endless possible sequences, and all sorts of other variables. You just don't gain as much from indoor boulders. And this is a performance pyramid. So for a boulder to be included, it has to be in the performance environment. And finally, if all of your V7s are endurance V7s or one-move power V7s, it isn't going to get the job done. It might unlock access to a very specific V10, but it's not going to unlock the grade. Instead, we're looking for variety. In fact, it might help to view it like this. Think of each boulder as one of these blocks. Is that too on the nose? Think of each block as one of these blocks? Anyway, each block has several sides. The grade is only one side, and grade is just an approximation of difficulty. On the other sides are the facets that contribute to this difficulty. Variety of styles or grip types, slopey compression, techie vertical edges, pinchy roof climbing, friction slabs. And on another side are different rock types, sandstone, granite, limestone, etc. Variety of conditions, humid, dry, cold, hot. It's inevitable that some of these blocks will be in situations where you have all the time in the world to work them out, and some will be the last day of the trip or right before the threatening storm clouds open up. And some will be in front of a big crowd. Some will just be you, alone in the woods. Length and height matter, as does whether the crux is at the bottom or top of the boulder. Do you have to give more intensive effort or extensive effort? There are endless combinations. The more you collect, the better you get, particularly at this level, the base of your 4-level pyramid. See, climbing harder things isn't just about gaining a specific technique or reaching a specific level of strength. It's about being able to pass the test in a wide enough variety of situations that you get better at more effectively recalibrating and adapting the skill and action capacity that you already have, that you've done enough exploring and expanding, and now you know how to exploit. And this base level is in the sweet spot for all of that, because some of these will be new skills. Most of it will be recalibrating skills you've already gained to help solidify them, and you're likely to find ones that you can flash, exploiting the skills you've already mastered. And that is what will prepare you to add that goal block to the top of your pyramid. Thanks for watching or listening. In the show notes, you'll find related links, videos, and episodes, as well as how you can subscribe to our monthly newsletter, The Current, where we connect the dots to help climbers learn, grow, and excel.